Gruesome Magazine.
Hello, once again, I'm your host, Doc Rotten, and this is Gruesome Magazine, where we review the very latest in streaming and video on-demand horror movies. Each week, my co-host, Jeff Mohr, Crystal Cleveland, Dave Dreher, Christopher G. Mohr, and myself will take a look at various spooky, scary, and gory genre offerings. Tonight, we're reviewing The Nun II, which is streaming now on Max beginning October 27th. And before we get into all that, let me introduce the crew, starting off with my co-host, Jeff Mohr. Jeff, how you doing, sir?
I'm a good.
You're good boy. Okay. Also joining us is award-winning filmmaker even, Christopher G. Mohr.
What's up? You know, I had Monastery sent me a painting. I don't know why, but I thought I'd hang it up for the podcast. So hopefully nothing weird will happen.
Oh, you know it's
I thought last episode that was your mother, wasn't it?
Oh. What? What?
Well, the painting's changed.
The painting's changed?
Okay, not your mother, your brother.
I'm so confused. All right. We are going to get into reviewing the movie. We're going to start off giving you our first impressions. Those first impressions will be spoiler-free. Then we'll dive into a discussion. We'll get into the spoilers. There are spoilers in this, and it's a kind of a whodunit, sort of. And then we'll wrap things up. And then we'll wrap things up with a score, 1 to 5, and our favorite scene. Oh my goodness! And we hope you enjoy not only this review, but any others that we have on the site. If you do, please hit the like, subscribe, and share with a friend buttons. Each click will help us find more horror fans just like you. Let's do the card. Let's get this rocking and rolling. Kaboom! Kaboom! Right? Kaboom! All right, The Nun II, 2023 on Max. Beginning October 27, 2023. The synopsis is in 1956 France, a priest is murdered. The evil is spreading. A sequel to the worldwide smash hit follows Sister Irene as she once again comes face to face with Valak, the demon nun. This is directed by Michael Chaves. It's written by Ian Goldberg, Richard Naing, and Akela Cooper, based on the characters created by James Wan and Gary Dauberman. The cast includes Taysa Farmiga, Jonas Bluquet, Storm Reed, and Popawell, Bonnie Aarons, Caitlin Rose Downey, and Suzanne Bertish. A very female-centric cast. See? All right, let's find out what our first impression of this film is. Christopher, you start us off. The Nun II.
Well, if you saw our review of the first Nun, I was not a big fan of it. And I think at least this one, the tone is in place. It doesn't go all over the place with tone. But it's serviceable, I guess. I mean, I didn't find any of it to be. I mean, I found the trailer to be scarier than the movie.
Nice.
And it basically runs the gag into the ground of that from The Conjuring. It's like, oh, we have the thing where she comes out of the painting, so now we're just going to have things on the wall. We're just going to have images, and she's going to pop out of it at some point. And they add all the big music or the big sting to try to scare you, and it's just like, okay, I've seen it before. You know, this is almost becoming almost like Indiana Jones or National Treasure, where it's like they got to figure out what this thing involving, you know, the religious object or whatever that we can fight Valak with. And, you know, I'll say the way they sort of battle Valak in the end, I kind of appreciated, because it's one of those things to where they make, there's a line of dialogue and it pays off, you know. So, but I don't know. There's all these things to where it's like you said there's kind of a mystery, but there's really not much of a mystery other than the mystery object or whatever. And even that's like, you know, it feels very Indiana Jones, Holy Grailish. But I don't know, and I feel like there's things that happen that don't make kind of a lot of a sense, and then they kind of hint at characters and visions and stuff that kind of like, well, there's really no payoff for that. and they think that's going to be something bigger than it is. And then the last 20% is, the female cast. It's just a whole group of females screaming and running for a good part of it. There's really, it's like, so, I mean, I don't hate the movie, but it's not anything that really had anything that was interesting. That there was pieces of dialogue that felt like this is information. And you have these two different stories and they kind of connect. And then the whole time I'm thinking, do I even remember what happened in the first Nun? Does it matter what I know? Because then I get kind of confused, because if you saw like the ending of the first Nun, how it kind of ties in to the Conjuring verse, I was like, wait a minute, isn't he this or that? So I don't know. I mean, I'm glad I didn't see it in the theaters.
No.
I'll just say that much. It was kind of easier, but I don't know. I think my biggest problem with this franchise so far is that
the Conjuring franchise. Right?
Well, just I'm talking about this character. At least there's
okay.
kind of rules with some of the other movies. This one, I feel like all the rules get thrown out, and they're just always some kind of object they fight her with. But then she has all these overarching powers that are just a little, almost like when you have superheroes that have too much power. And I feel like that's the problem with Valak. I feel like with that nun character, she has too much power. And then it's like, how do you fight against that? And so I don't know. I feel like there's, it's okay.
It's okay, he says. Okay. All right. Jeff Mohr, what was your first impression of The Nun II?
Well, I did see it in the theater about a month ago. And I watched it again for this review, and I don't know, I kind of like it. But then I kind of like the first one too. So I'm not saying they're great movies, but I enjoyed it. I liked the way the story played out, how we revealed things about Sister Irene's past as things went on. And we also learned some things about Sister Deborah. And if you're paying attention, you know who the bad person is right off the bat, because they give you a huge tip off pretty early on. I don't know about right off the bat, but pretty early. There's a couple of scenes where you got to go, well, that's so-and-so. Anyway, but I just kind of enjoyed the whole thing. They had a couple of different storylines going and racing to different parts. I liked how there were visions that were created by both the good and the bad side, or the dark side of the force, or God and the angels and the devil and the demon. There were things that happened to them that revealed things that they needed to know. And then there were other visions that came to them that were, leading them into traps and harmful situations. So I thought the acting was pretty good. I mean, wow, Storm Reed is really building a block of credentials. I mean, she got an Emmy for The Last of Us. And the stuff I just can't even believe all the stuff she's been in. Missing, Suicide Squad, Invisible Man, A Wrinkle in Time a few years ago. So anyway, I look forward to more stuff from her, but she does a good job as well. So I think I'll stop there before I say something that will give something away.
Sounds like a positive first impression for me as well, but it comes with a caveat because I'm a sucker for this. I love the Conjuring universe and I love these films. I remember the film The Nun disappointed me when I saw it in the theaters, but when I saw it again later on, rewatched it on streaming, it actually played better the second time because I didn't have the expectations going into it. And I knew what I was getting, and it played a lot better. this one I thought was an improvement. I think much like the Annabelle films, they're getting better with each movie, and I'm certain we're going to see another one. It would be surprising if we didn't. And I liked Sister Irene character. I like the new character from Storm Reed. Frenchie is back, and that's fun. I like the new characters that are introduced. I like that the one bully character isn't dispatched, but she certainly goes through the worst of it. Of the rest of them, and there's a couple other little new frights that are introduced. A ghost of one character, and then a manifestation of a image from a glass mural that I really liked. Okay, so I watched it in the theater about a month ago as well in September, and then, or I guess that's a couple months now. No, it's a month ago. Bath, and then watched it again this weekend, and for me it played better the second time again. And there's some imagery in this that I really like. There's some efforts I like. Some of it, like Christopher said, is repetitive. There's, they go back to the well a couple of times with, look away, look back, look away, look back. At least it's kind of interesting what they're doing here with it this time. And then the picture, they do the picture thing. Again, the image was cool, but I think it was far more effective the first go around that we saw it. There's a couple of things that we need to discuss as far as tying it into the bigger picture. There's some interesting things happening there. For me, it's I'm not really sure where to put it. It's definitely a step above the first Nun. I think anybody that kind of liked the first Nun would like this one. And I'm not really sure where to put it with the Annabelle movies. It's far better than the first Annabelle film, but some of the later Annabelle films really got well, and then the Conjuring films are better than both of those. So we'll see what happens here. Success to them. There's only 3 minutes of the character. I read there's only 3 minutes of the nun actually on screen. Her presence is always felt, but there's only actually 3 minutes of her physically on screen.
Pretty much quick cuts. I was wondering about that. I'm glad you.
Yeah. But there's other things. So let's get into some spoilers because I want to talk about some of the other things. I really liked the demon wolf dog devil thing that was running around that came off of the
goat.
Demon
the goat.
werewolf.
Yeah, it was a goat, I guess. I guess it was a weregoat.
It was the goat off the stained glass window.
Yeah, well, it was supposed to be a goat, but it was more just like a man. It was a werewolf with horns, basically.
But I liked it. I thought it was really good. It was fun, and there was some. And I liked the ghost of the lady when they were getting chased, and they looked into the lady's room again and saw her ghost, and she come out, and everybody. There's a great shot that comes off of in my opinion, it comes off of the. In the trailer where they're looking through the I guess it's the air duct into the other room, and her hand comes out, and the screams on like Storm Reed and the rest of them really, for me, sold that scene a lot better than even the trailer.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No.
I loved how she in that scene when the hands first come through and grab that bully girl.
Yes.
The Sister Deborah, the first thing she does is she cringes back and plasters herself up against the wall. Yeah. And then she realizes she has to do something. She's like the closest thing to an adult in the room. So she charges forward to help them. But I thought, I don't know, I felt like that was a little more realistic reaction than sometimes they delay them way too much one way or the other.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly different than like what Sister Irene would have done right away, right? So it was kind of a superhero in this movie as well. But,
right.
Well, to some degree, there was still a lot of screaming, and
there was a lot
doing
of
a lot.
So I like Maurice or Frenchie as we knew him in the first film. I liked the visual of when he would I guess, get activated because Valak would try to do stuff and he would just kind of freeze in place. There's one shot when he's in the garden and
start crunching and twitching.
Yeah, and he's just standing there, and you know something's up. To me, there's a lot of creepy moments. There's a lot of really interesting set pieces. I don't know. We can go on. What Christopher what was the most successful thing in the movie that you think happened? Eerie wise, scary. Nothing successful.
I mean, I'll say there's elements. I think when the weregoat or whatever that thing was, when it's running down the stairs and stuff, it's kind of creepy. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if a lot of the scares were that successful. I mean, they seemed more. It seemed more visually interesting as a setup than scary. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a lot of the visuals and stuff where it's more. It was more cinematic. I think that's my biggest problem with a lot of these things. I think as we get more of these things, they become so polished, over polished, that they kind of lose the scariness. You know what I mean? And then they try to overamp it with the sound effects and the music stings to try to scare people. I mean, I will say in that initial trailer, even though I knew it was happening, when the girl like sticks her head in there and then the hands come out, I kind of expected that, but I remember it jolted people in the theater just from the trailer. So, I mean, it has those moments that kind of, I mean, I'll say it is kind of creepy when she looks in there and she sees like the former headmistress or whatever, and I hate cockroaches, so just all the little cockroaches flying over there. I was like, so you have those moments that kind of set up a creepy atmosphere, or even just like, but yeah, but then it's like, I just like, come on, like when she sees the desiccated, falling apart wall, and it even looks like it. It almost like somebody painted the nun on there. It's like, come on, it's supposed to be that it kind of looks like it.
I thought it was cool.
I really like that.
No, it's just, to me, it was like they're trying.
I thought it looked
hard.
Like plaster chipped in relief.
Well, I understand that, but then when it went away, it looked like they just painted the wall like that. It's like, well, you not even try to hide it. It's like, come on,
it was there. I don't think it was just always there.
Well, that in the magazines as well. So
yeah,
apparently that if you look hard at the magazines, much like in the Conjuring 2, Valak is actually spelt out in the magazines as well.
Well, I just found it more interesting when they would, the different images that would, because there were certain images where it was just like faces like this, and then the next minute there was one time it was like a hamster head at the top and stuff, so I kind of laughed instead of it being scary, because it was just like, and I'll say again, there's a lot of setup for these things, which I'll give them props up, that there's a huge visual setups that kind of, for me, it's kind of steals the scare of it. It's just more interesting, visually interesting. I mean, there's some really cool visual, like I mean, when we talk about visual flourishes, I like when you have that kind of, or even like the opening scene with the priest that goes up and catches on fire in midair and stuff. There's visual, but then like when you see that him Frenchie leaving, and there's a huge shadow. Why is there a thumbs up? There's a huge shadow.
That's weird.
Why is this thing happening just to me? There's a huge shadow that shows up behind him. That's Valak. And then when he gets closer, it's supposed to be like his shadow. So again, those kind of things just pretty much tell you.
Oh yeah.
I mean, plus if you saw the first Nun film, you kind of know, who's being controlled. But yeah, I mean, the visually, the cinematography is really well done. I mean, you have, I'll say like the altar boy, when he's swinging that little, I don't think we see that very often, where he's swinging the little ash thing and hitting her upside the head. Yeah. And I mean, we haven't really seen that before. And there's a really kind of cool visual thing where she shines a light and his little ash thing just falls down on its own. So again, there's some nice visual flourishes. I'm not saying, I mean, it's a well-made film visually, cinematography wise. I just story wise, it just felt it felt kind of empty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I will say, story wise, and now that we're in kind of Spoilerville, that they say the line where, you know, talk about Jesus and the wine, turning the wine, you know, turning the water to wine and stuff, and it's all about believing. And when that ties into them getting into that wine cellar and stuff, I was like, okay, I give them props to how story wise, script wise, how they kind of work that out to where you have the, you know, the normal,
and
the Chekhov's
Sister-
wine, I guess.
Chekhov's wine.
Yeah, Sister Deborah had this. She wasn't sure about her faith yet, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
and so then when she sees what happens to Sister Irene, she goes, "Now that was a miracle." Then you knew that was okay.
Yeah.
Now she's
Well,
got her
yeah.
faith, so
And story wise, that arc, you kind of expect that's going to happen at some point for them to battle it, you know, because I think for the most part, she's just working by her wits instead of belief. She's hitting the guy outside the head with a stick.
Yeah.
I mean, so she's just doing her normal thing, you know, just trying to to live, I guess, as opposed to actually. So I think when it comes to story arcs, that worked out for those characters, for both of those characters, to kind of figure out where they are and their connection to the things and how they work together. Kind of like, I guess, the opposite of Exorcist Believer, where these two girls work together to fight against evil. So.
I also want to call out the locations, because they actually shot in France, the streets, and the actual the boarding school was a building that was there, so those were real. I'm sure they built some stages to handle some of the things, but at the same time, you know, the streets looked great. They were atmospheric
I'll say, I mean, that kind of helps when you have, I don't know what the budget on this was, but you have to have a kind of a budget to be able to pull off like that whole street of cars and stuff.
20 million, I think.
Was it 20 million? Well, I'm sure some of it had to go to it. As long as you have like a lockdown location and different things to be able to shoot it, you can probably take some of those costs off. They did have a good amount of CGI stuff, you know, when you're like got bales falling through a building.
Well, this says 38 million, but I
38.
saw something somewhere that was 20, and it also said they had 130 million. This says 85. It probably hasn't been updated.
Okay, I started to say that's
worldwide. So.
That's because it's the Conjuring thing. They kind of spend a whole lot more than like Blumhouse would. So I would assume that having that kind of budget gives you the ability to have all those like retro cars.
Oh, you know what? Never mind.
That scene.
That was a different movie, but still, they're making money.
But yeah, they're gonna make money off it. But I'm just saying that like having that money gives you ability to pull off some of the production design, like whether it be costumes, but just having like a whole street of cars or be able to, you know, so I think that kind of helps, you know, because that's why a lot of horror films don't do time period stuff. Because if you have a limited budget, you don't have the ability to do that. You'd rather do something more contemporary.
Yeah, the budget was 38 million. You were right about that, Joe.
It was? Okay.
And then the box office was worldwide is 264 million.
There you go.
I see that.
We'll probably see a Nun 3. I would imagine.
Well, you know, they that's why they kind of keep them at a certain budget and limitation wise with location and stuff. That kind of helps.
So you guys, see, I wasn't raised Catholic, so I don't know anything about saints unless they're super common. Is there really a Saint Lucy?
I was wondering that too. I mean, I grew up Southern Baptist, so I don't really. So a lot of my saints, I just know about, like, you know, Saint Patrick or something like that. But I was wondering that too, if they created their own saint to facilitate their story, or
no, there's a
there really is one.
Lucio Syracuse, 283 to 304, known as Saint Lucy, and there's paintings and sculptures and reliefs of her. So yeah, they used some real art. They used a foundation to build on.
Yeah.
And they tied it in too. And
patron saint of the blind, so that's true too.
Yep. And I really liked there's one scene where she opens up a door. One of the girls, I think it's the young girl, right? The daughter. That's and she opens up the door and she sees the hallway of Lorraine. Warren.
Yeah.
I really like that. I really like that visual. It was a nice callback, and they didn't overdo it. And then there's a shot where a lot of images flash through when we get the reveal about Sister Irene, and then you get the eyes of Lorraine again, real quick in those flashbacks, and I really appreciate that.
Although the person,
Penny.
in the sort of the visions she had of the guy stabbing her in the eyes, wasn't that the helper of the priest?
I didn't recognize him.
That would look like the same guy, and so I kept thinking he was
the priest at the beginning.
Yeah, the guy that was next to him, because it looked like the same guy, and I thought he was going to show up at the end. So the whole time I'm thinking this is whole kind of like cultish type thing that was going to happen, and it didn't. So I was like, why would you? I mean, maybe it's just one of those things where visions use people that you know, I guess.
Or he was on the set, and you just need to put him in there. Nobody will realize it except for Christopher J. Mohr. Or they're seeding something for the third one.
Well, there could be that too, but now I guess they got to find some other way to fight against Valak that involves some kind of thing involving Christ.
Yeah, and we are supposed to get a Conjuring 4 called The Last Rite or Last Rites, and then after that that's going to wrap up the cinematic Warrens, from what I understand, and then they're going to go into like a series where it digs into some other stuff without the Warren cast that we know. So,
well, I'm sure they'll probably end it like in real life where she lost her husband. So.
Possibly, it's hard to tell. But the chronologically how they're going, it'll be in the mid '80s. So they're everybody's speculating about which of the stories they'll do from the mid to late '80s. But anyway, at that, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let's give a score 1 to 5 and pick a favorite scene. Christopher G. Mohr, you're up first.
Like I said, it's serviceable. It's none too exciting for me.
I
mean, I'll give it a serviceable 3.
Oh, very good.
I mean, I don't hate it. I was not, like I said before, I was not a big fan of the first one. So this is definitely an improvement because it's more traditional in its tone. And it's really shot very well. It's got some good performances by the actors and stuff. And I did like the way it plays out. As favorite scene, I guess I'll just have to say the wine fight scene. I think story wise, that was really well played on their part, and having something you would just normally hear like religious people talking about, and then making an actual part of how they fight against Valak, which I was like, okay, I appreciate that. That was kind of well thought, because sometimes it kind of worries me when you have multiple people. I think it's had 3 writers on it. So sometimes when you have a lot of writers throwing their 2 cents in, it's a little bit muddled. But I think that was the one part that I really thought was well thought out story wise. Well,
they didn't have to rely on the MacGuffin to get out of the problem.
Yeah. As opposed to other parts where I roll my eyes like, oh. So I think that's the one thing that I really appreciated with it.
Nice. Jeff, what is your score and favorite scene? What are you laughing at?
Oh, where my brain goes. Are we not divulging what the relic was?
Oh, we can.
Well, so only I should say this. But the holy relic is a pair of eyes that they've been carrying around for like 1,000 years in this in this case, wrapped up in an old piece of burlap cloth. It's just gross, just the idea of it. It's just gross. The holy relic, it's our eyeballs. And so then I'm like thinking, well, what about the patron saint of fatherhood? What's his or of impotent men? What's in his holy relic? But anyway,
different body parts. Yeah,
I just can't. But I thought it was cool. I kind of dug that. Okay, favorite scene. Well, I'm going to take, since you guys did. I mean, I could pick a bunch of different ones, but I'm going to take the. I'm going to call it the devil goat on the stairs. When you first saw it in the shadows, it was just the right amount, I thought. And just the idea of it, because there was something you noticed. They sort of startled I think it was Sophie was startled by the fact that the goat wasn't on the window anymore.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was it in the stained glass? And so that was a cool idea. And I'm going. I can't remember what I gave the first one. So I'm going to say a little bit more. So if you like this kind of movie, then I think you should watch it. If there's like possession movies and stuff like that, because they're all going to have creaking doors. They're all going to have shadows. They're all going to have thumping. They're all going to have stuff that appears and disappears. It's just part of the deal. And this has a couple things going for it that are different and a good enough story to hold your interest. So I'm going to go 3.75.
Oh, nice. You're gonna laugh at me here in a minute, because that's my score. I have a 3.75 written down. I kind of want to lean into a 4, but I feel like I'm leaning into my the bias I have. Just love it. I'm an easy target. I'm the target audience for this, literally. So favorite scene. Okay, there was one shot. There's a lot of favorite scenes I could pick. There's just some really fun stuff that happens. But there's a moment when, of course, right at the third act, things get the worst for our heroes, right? And Valak has the relic, right? And they were talking about her earlier as being an angel that was rejected, right?
Oh,
by God.
yeah.
And when she has that, she rises up, and you get the kind of this lighting that gives it a halo effect around the head of it. And I just really like that. And there was and Maurice was in the foreground, and he was all, eyes were all bloody and everything. And I thought visually what they were handling in this room, where it's already destroyed from the bell falling into it, but just it just really worked. And I really liked that shot. It made it. There was something menacing. It just was menacing, but yet it's not a menacing image. That the halo isn't typically menacing, right? So I just really enjoyed what they did there, and how they were kind of relating it to what they said about her earlier.
Well, there was and you made me think of this too. So I picked an effects scene, but I really liked the scene where Sophie's mom was down talking to Maurice in the garden, and then she goes back upstairs, and the daughter wants to know what she's doing, and the mother's starting to walk away. Come on, we got to go. And the daughter's looking down into the garden, and Maurice is chasing some ravens over into the corner. Then all of a sudden he goes into
he freezes.
The freeze pose. Yeah. And I thought that was effective. Tying the ravens were tied in several times.
Yeah. Yep. We've been talking about ravens this past October a lot. All right. Well, there you go. That's our review of the Nun II, streaming now on Max. If you've seen it in theaters, or if you saw it on Max streaming, or if you rented it POV, let us know what you think of it in the comments down below. Jeff, Christopher, thank you for joining me. For me, this was a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, excellent.
Exactly. All right, with that, let's say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Gruesome Magazine.